Hello and welcome to Future Procurement. My name is Robert Freeman and I'm procurement expert. And today in our Future Procurement Podcast we are having the honor to have Simon Stockdale with us, who is CEO of PageMap. And he's joining us on this Skype call from New Zealand. And he will tell his background today and tell his story. And he will share his big ideas that I was really excited about. So welcome, Simon.
Thank you. Well, I'll start just telling you a little bit about my background. You mentioned that I'm here in New Zealand. I started off life in the UK, but I've been in New Zealand nearly 30 years now, and also worked in Australia, and also done some work in India and Nepal. So I worked in various parts of the world. My background originally is in IT. I have a computer science degree, but I was one of those IT people that was had a greater liking for people than I did for computer terminals and programming. So very quickly, I decided I was more interested in doing support work, analysis work, business analysis, the work that brought me into contact with people rather than having me sitting in front of a computer screen all day. So I spent some time with KPMG as an international consultant. I've had my own software businesses, and my journey into developing PageMap was through a solar energy business which I founded in New Zealand several years ago. And that's now the largest solar company in New Zealand. So that's really when I first got involved in the procurement process from our customer side, and had this big challenge around large complex contracts that I needed to understand.
So you were working in procurement yourself. This is how you revealed this, so to say, pain or this lack of a good system, or?
Yeah. My experience in procurement earlier on had really just been in IT contracts. So I was sort of, familiar with contracts, but then suddenly I was having to purchase solar systems, parts for solar systems and services to go with them, and a number of other contracts also on the customer side.
How did you see this problem? I mean, was it really so big problem that you have seen an opportunity, or what was the background of that?
Yeah, well, one thing about technology people is that they're always looking for an easier way to do something using technology. And the challenge with contracts, and so contracts are quite large projects that we were involved with, or major supplies that were perhaps coming out of China and other parts of the world, is you might have 50 or 60 pages to deal with. There are cross-references, there are a lot of defined terms, and there's several people in the business who need to look over the contract because it's got technical aspects, it's got financial aspects, etc. And I just found it was difficult to get everyone to have that common understanding, and for us to assess, was the contract in a good shape for us to sign. And I've certainly been in several situations in other companies where everyone's just found the contract so difficult, and after about the third draft, they say, let's just sign it and get on with it, and
exactly.
And then usually it's signed, and there are sort of little problems in there which are risks for the project further down the road.
Yeah, it's a very important point, and actually for me personally, Simon, this is something where I feel the most of frustration, and this is where my energy goes away completely without really adding value, because again, honestly and straightforward, contract management or having new drafts and making the corrections on the contracts is really a complicated and frustrating process for me. So that's why I always liked being in procurement and supply chain management. I always tried to delegate these kind of things, but when I needed to do this, that was really a nightmare. So you can really make great agreements with your suppliers or with another stakeholders or parties, but then how to make it in written was really a nightmare for me. So I really share your ambition to tackle the problem, and I'm really curious, Simon, for you to share your approach and how did you really turned this problem into how could you make the system which easen up the process of contract review? Can you share with our listeners?
Yeah, I mentioned a couple of things which are the barrier to understanding a large contract or other document, and that is lots of definitions. So typically the contracts I was dealing with would have about 100 defined terms.
Right.
So if you're on page 37 and it's suddenly got a defined term, maybe a minimum order or a penalty date or something, and you think, oh, what was that penalty date? And you've read 2 other contracts that same morning. So my solution for that is that when we upload a contract into PageMap, we have an algorithm that finds all the definitions, and so that whenever you see, so if you see, say, penalty date on the page in your contract, you can just click on it and it just pops up what definition is. Wow. So you get away from all that scrolling backwards.
You mean that it's in electronic format you can review? Okay.
Yeah. So yes, we take everything out of a contract document file and put it into a database, so it's readily available to any part of our system. And then we do the same with cross references. So if you're reading that blah 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 subject to clause 8.3.4, and you're in a very different part of the document, then you just click on 8.3.4 and it tells you exactly what it is, gives you a few lines, and then if you need to go to that part of the document, you just click on it and you immediately scroll there. And then if you want to come back, we have a little breadcrumb trail at the top of the page, so that you can come back to where you are. One of the big challenges in a document is to just stop you getting once you've followed all these links, suddenly you forget where you originally were and what you were originally trying to find out from the document. So really helping that whole navigation process of keeping you on track, so that you can read it more from page 1 through to the end without too much scrolling up and down.
Exactly. So it makes the process more interactive and more intuitive.
Yeah, and then we also do some integrity checks. Particularly definitions are quite a problematic area in contracts. Often things are defined, so you might go to your definition section and see that confidentiality or intellectual property has been defined, but then it's never used in the document. So effectively, it's not in the agreement. So we check that all definitions have been used. We look for mismatches in cases, and also sometimes you'll find things have been defined twice by mistake. So we pick up all those issues and put them in a side drawer, so you can see and navigate to all those definitions and instances and see if those are true issues that need addressing.
Right. Simon, can you say who is the main customer of yours, of this program? I mean, is it the lawyer or is it the procurement professional? Or
both. So we do have a number of lawyers who use it generally in their work, not just with procurement contracts, but contracts in general. Right. And then we also have procurement managers. We've got quite a lot of customers in Australia. A lot of major Australian companies will have offices across the country, and Australia is a very big country, so they have to do, even within the same company, they're doing a lot of work remotely. So one of our customers is a large packaging company. They do medical packaging and food packaging. So when they're looking at a procurement contract for packaging materials, they've got to look at it from an engineering point of view. They've got to look at it from a toxicology point of view, because they're doing the food packaging, and these people are in different parts of the country. So they've got to have input from several different people on a contract review, and they need to make sure everyone's providing their input, and that input is recorded.
That's really interesting what you say, because for me it was always a challenge to get the expertise from different people and different specialists and different angles, so to say, like you say, from technical perspective, also from legal perspective, from financial perspective. You should place everything in one place. Does it allow different people to access it? And
so you can share the documents with as many people as you wish, both inside and outside the organization, and then so everyone is looking at the same version of the document, and they can highlight and comment on that document. And the other aspect in terms of people with different disciplines or interest in the document is we a key part of PageMap is being able to store lots of keywords for searches. And so that if your interest is on the finance side, say, then when you look at a document, the topics you're interested in are related to words like payment, penalty interest, acceptance, and those sorts of things, where the inventory people are more interested in aspects of delivery, shelf life, and all those sorts of things. So what we allow users to do is to have their own sets of keywords that they're interested in, which they can load into the document, but and then they can make their comments. But everyone's looking at the same version of the document, because unlike say doing a document collaboration with Google Docs, where it's a bit of a free-for-all. With procurement, you want a sort of managed and moderated process. So it's critical that everyone's literally on the same page, can see everyone else's comments, etc.
Wow, it's really great. I didn't reveal this option by myself, and when I used it briefly, so that's really exciting what you say. Right. So different people can make the amendments, and then it will be trackable. Is it online or is it?
It's online. It's completely cloud-based. So which is particularly valuable when you've got people in different locations who are accessing the documents, and you can put either PDF or Word documents into the system.
That's great. And really to make the the final impression on this tool, can you briefly describe how can it work from beginning to the end in a nutshell? I mean, does it start from the scratch? And if I'm a procurement manager, for example, and I want to make a number of contracts which are most likely similar with different suppliers, can you draw a short picture? What do I do, and how can So the contracts are typically they're still drafted in Word. So there is some template, or you make the template?
No, we don't have contract templates. We're working with existing existing contracts. So either it's maybe something you've drawn up on your own paper in Word, or it's perhaps one you've received as a PDF. Then you upload it into to PageMap. You can review the defined terms, and there's some other integrity checks around the construction of the document. So in fact, your first iteration, you might, in terms of getting definitions fixed up and that sort of thing, any other ambiguities, something you may wish to just sort out with the supplier first before you get your wider audience involved. And then what you do is you then invite the other people in the business. So if you're the procurement manager, invite the legal people and the business owner of the contract, and whoever you need into. You can also, if you wish, just upload the document twice, and then you can actually have a version that you're sharing with the supplier for a different conversation with the supplier as you do on the.
Wow! So you mean that the same process can be done with suppliers? This is really interesting.
Yeah. So the sharing is a very easy process. And then when everyone's had their input, they can highlight different sections of the document. You can then have the conversation in the document and agree what needs to be done. Then the document owner, which is the person who originally uploaded the document, they're effectively the document moderator, so they can then set the comments as being accepted or rejected. And then finally, at the end of a drafting iteration or the end of the process, the document can be logged. Because what's very important for a number of our customers from a compliance point of view is that not only do they want to have the final working version of the document, but they want to be clear about the input from different people in the organization as to how they got to that and why particular clauses might have been worded as they are. So so they then can then lock that document and store it away in archive folders by supplier or department, so that it's always there as a permanent record.
I think what you said was really like an eye-opener for me, that you can use it not only for yourself, I mean, not only for your organization, but also you can put it in the cloud and share it with your, for example, suppliers or different vendors, and have the amendments between organizations, because this is a even bigger hustle, even bigger struggle for, as I say, for me, for example, or for many other people from procurement. And one of the reasons of this podcast was to give back motivation and inspiration to people, and we were thinking how to reactivate the enthusiasm and energy for procurement professionals. And I believe that this is one of the way, because it takes away so big frustration and so big demotivation, so to say, to really, as I said about myself, to touch these contracts was always like something I really didn't want to do. But when you describe it, it really isn't up the process.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm just one of those people. I like to get rid of the tedious and boring bits of and automate. And there's a lot of good technology out there to implement, and because more and more is now cloud-based, like PageMap, and I've just been reviewing a contract management system that we're going to be integrating with, then it's very easy to implement in terms of there's no software to install on your own systems, but we're also you can be very confident in the security. So on PageMap, the default is always that something is not shared. If you then do deliberately share a document with someone else, they can't then start downloading that document from PageMap and getting it out and doing their own thing. So it does protect your security really, really well.
Exactly, that was my question. How good is safety in this one, and how to really secure that your partners, especially from the other companies, don't?
Yeah, so we have... some of your listeners may be familiar with the term of penetration testing, which you give your system to an external group of sort of ethical hackers, and they try and hack into your system and see. And so that's an important part of the security process, to make sure that people can't readily hack into your system. And our systems sits on top of Amazon servers, so those are all professionally managed servers in different parts of the world. And companies like Amazon, and there are others, Microsoft Azure, and other what they call infrastructure as a service. So you typically, as a software as a service company like mine, you don't build that architecture yourself. You pick the best architecture and also the most cost-effective architecture that's out there to sit your system on, and then a lot of the security issues are taken care of for us by Amazon, but then there's also our own internal security that we have to manage very, very carefully. And then equally, for anyone who's concerned about security, then it's also their internal responsibilities about making sure people use strong passwords and those sorts of things to make sure that all their data, wherever it is secure.
Oh, exactly, because I believe that in the organizations or companies where I was working before, for example, this was also having a different approach from different companies. And for some companies, they would just send the drafts to completely unknown people who we only started the cooperation with without any non-disclosure agreements or things like that. So, and in some companies, we start with being very protective from the beginning, and really taking care of intellectual property of what I said, non-disclosure agreement. So it was really different approach from different companies. So I believe that if you have the integrated safety and security in PageMap, then it's up to the company how do you use it and how do you really, so you can still make stupid mistakes even with such a protected system.
That's right. And so the important approach there, and obviously it's fundamental to procurement, is to have good processes, whatever you're doing in your organization, and make sure that people follow those processes. Not that they need to be too Rigorous is not the one word, but the processes mustn't stifle the organisation.
Exactly.
Otherwise, that's often a way that people will try and work their way around the procurement department. You've got to remember that you're offering a service to your business, but you've got to have robust processes that support and protect the business.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Simon, to finalize this big idea and big change driver for many companies that you propose, the page map. To finalize this one, can you say who is a typical customer you have which companies can benefit the most, or which companies maybe you can share some companies that people know and that are already using your service? And if some of our listeners or some of the companies that our listeners are representing, if they decide to go for page map, how can they find it, and how can they maybe benefit from listening to this podcast to have the page map today?
So I just have to be a little bit careful to protect our customer confidentiality. So a good example customer it's an Australian packaging manufacturer I've already mentioned. They're called PPG Group, not to be confused with, there's a paint and chemical company in the US, which is PPG, but different company. So the driver of their system is their compliance manager, who's involved in a lot of their procurement processes.
Right.
Many of our customers are putting 2 or 3 contracts a week through the systems, depends on the volume. So in terms of size of customer, a lot of your listeners probably wouldn't know PPG, but they're a company, they would employ probably 400 or 500 people. But then equally, we do have, if you look at lawyers, we do have sole practitioner lawyers who are commercial lawyers and are dealing with contracts a great deal. So we go down to very small users as well, or medium-sized law firms. We have a paint manufacturer in New Zealand, which again it's a company I think employs about 200 people.
Right.
So that's where we're relatively new piece of software, so we're still building up our user base, and I'll talk to you shortly about how some of your listeners could get access to PageMap, and we can offer a discount to your listeners. Right. So our domain name, website is pagemap.com, pagemap.com.
Right.
And there's an introductory video, just 2 or 3 minutes long, on our homepage. So that's the easiest way to get to know the software.
Which people will love for sure if if they're working with contracts. You can just
let it roll, and hopefully my demonstration will let people understand how the software works, and they can see whether it fits them. And so we and then there's a 14-day free trial. So anyone can avail themselves of that, and they don't need a credit card or anything like that. So there's an example document in that free trial, and they can upload some of their own documents and try it for themselves.
Right. So we will attach it to the footnotes of this podcast, wherever you listen to it. Please check it. Yeah.
And we're happy to, any of your listeners, we're happy to give them 15% discount on an annual subscription.
Right. What should people do to get it?
Sorry, I'll be a little more generous. I think I'll offer them 20% discount on that annual subscription. Super. And it's it is priced in, depending where you are in the world, it will come up with different prices. So it's priced in euros and also in pounds and US dollars. Now, of course, we now need to tell people how they can access that discount. And Robert, you're in Vienna, so we have a promo code field when you do your sign up. So if someone puts Vienna 2017 in that promo code, then we'll make sure that they, when their payment is processed, they'll get a 20% discount.
I will also attach it. Vienna 2017 is what you said. Great. And thank you very much, Simon, for this generosity. 20% discount for our listeners. If you decide to go for PageMap today or after this podcast, please feel free to enter Vienna 2017 in the field.
Great. Well, thank you, Robert. Always enjoy talking about technology in general, or particularly the technology that I've developed. And
Simon, one last word I would ask from you before asking about your contacts yourself. It would be about this Thursday we will have the webinar with our Future Procurement community around building a successful procurement career, which will be called Boost Your Procurement Career in 4 weeks. And you have been working in procurement and with procurement and for procurement now. Can you give us few, maybe top 3 or top 2 advice for procurement and supply chain professionals? How can they build the successful career, or what are your advice for people to really come further in their career and to build the organization to a world-class level? What are your experienced advice? Please share with us.
Really important that you always remember that you're offering a service, and a service primarily to your internal customers, the people in your business who need to purchase things. And one of the challenges, particularly when new procurement processes are going in, or perhaps a procurement process is being introduced for the first time, is that particularly those people who've been in the organization longer than you have, they're always going to try and find ways around it so that they can buy things in their way. So remember that you're offering a service, and that's got to be a good service. You don't want to be seen to be putting roadblocks in the way. I mentioned earlier on about having good processes in place and well-documented processes in place so that people can understand what you require of them, so that you can provide your procurement services to the organization. And if you're in a large organization, then things will take time, and the process that you put in place might not be the right process first time, and you need it to be prepared to refine that, listen to the feedback from your internal customers. Now, I've often been involved in putting new systems in place, computerized systems, and it's quite common that you come across resistance of some sort from somewhere in an organization, and you just need to, you've got to face up to that and try and understand the people who are resisting and their point of view, why your process might be making things a little more difficult for them, and work with them to try and come up with a better process and solution.
I really like this advice. So consider yourself as a service and be open-minded and get the feedback when the things go wrong, because I like what you say, whatever you try to change, it will always be met with resistance, and it will most likely go wrong from the beginning. So be open-minded. I really like your advice, and I will for sure attach them to the footnotes of this podcast. Thank you so much, Simon. And before we finish our talk, can you say where our listeners can find you on the web?
Yeah, it's pagemap.com, pagemap.com.
Right. And then maybe as I found you also on LinkedIn, they can also find your name on LinkedIn if they want to have some more deep conversation or more direct contact about PageMap.
Yep, absolutely. So, Simon Stockdale on LinkedIn. I think there's only one of me in New Zealand, so I'm relatively easy to find.
You're right.
Look forward to connecting with anyone on LinkedIn. If they've got any direct questions for me, then I'd be happy to start a conversation.
That was a real pleasure talking to you, Simon, and I'm sure that for all our listeners it will be really interesting and curious topic about the optimization of the contract review process. So thank you so much, Simon, and have a great afternoon or evening, and I will have a great day here in Europe.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you everybody for listening to the end of this episode. I really enjoyed talking to Simon, and please share your feedback with us. What do you think about this new format? I'm really excited to hear from you. I hope you really like it the way I like it. And please don't forget that this Thursday, the 27th of July, we will have a great webinar, 1.5 hour webinar for free, which is called Boost Your Procurement Career. I will also leave the link to register for this webinar session, Boost Your Procurement Career in just 4 weeks. I'm really looking forward to it, and some of the things which Simon also mentioned we will touch upon there. So have a great week, guys, and see you on Thursday in our webinar. And of course, see you next Monday on the next podcast with our new guests. Keep in touch. My name was Robert Freeman, and this was Future Procurement. I wish you a great week.